Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 112, otherwise known as season 6, episode 13. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing good. If I sound a little different, it's because I'm on vacation in the spookiest state of all, Connecticut. Ooh, because there's a haunting in Connecticut and haunting Connecticut too.
Also with us, as always, is your other host, John Correa. How you doing, Correa?
How do I follow that up? Because I mean, first of all, that's a bold claim that Connecticut's the spookiest state. I mean,
jeez,
listen, I get it. I'm from up north. I get it. But no. Also, just the fun. Just yes, 2 haunting in Connecticut's. But if we remember, haunting in Connecticut 2. Something Georgia, wasn't that the title?
I think it was a haunting in Connecticut too, a haunting in Georgia, which is it's so stupid because why would you even call it a haunting in Connecticut if it's about a haunting in Georgia?
It's hold on, I got the title right here. Yes, the haunting in Connecticut 2, Ghosts of Georgia. Like, is it?
Those states are far apart.
I mean, if we're going New England, I mean, I think Massachusetts, you got the Salem witch trials there. Maine, you got people who live in Maine there. There's spookier places than Connecticut.
Where's Burkittsville from the Blair Witch Project? Is
Maryland.
that Maine or is that Maryland?
Maryland.
Okay.
Maryland, yeah. I think Maryland's the sleeper cell for spooky places because Maryland, you don't think about Maryland.
And in Baltimore with Edgar Allan Poe, I mean, they earned it.
Or even Delaware, mostly just because no one remembers Delaware. Remember in Wayne's World?
It's the ghost state.
I'm in Delaware.
So what you guys been doing? Anything cool happening this week?
Oh, man, just a lot of mindless working and stuff. I will say that I might not bring up Star Trek as often anymore, for I finally finished my Next Generation we watch, which, man, that 7th season, it's like they forgot all the stuff that made the show so great after the first 2 seasons, and they just kind of regressed a little bit. They had a whole thing. They gave Beverly I need to bitch about this for 2 seconds. It does have to do with spookies. They were terrible at writing for women on Next Generation. They did not give them many episodes, Deanna or Beverly Crusher. And when they finally give Beverly Crusher, who is a badass, has all her shit together, she's an amazing doctor, pretty decent mother, but Wesley is a special case, as we all know. They give her an episode that's all about her in the 7th season, and what it is her grandmother or aunt dies, and so she goes to the funeral. It opens up at the funeral, and she meets this man, and he turns out to be a ghost that's been fucking her relatives for generations. Like, every generation, there's a woman in her bloodline that falls in love and has sex with this ghost. And so Beverly goes, "You're right. I'm quitting the ship. I'm quitting being a doctor. And I'm going to stay here and bone this hundreds of years old Scottish ghost." And it's like, I'm sorry, what season are we on this? This is the 7th season, and you're gonna have the most got their shit together character fuck a ghost? No. This is Star Trek. Do better. Anywho's.
The big release that happened since we talked last isn't really horror, but it's Blue Beetle. Have you guys seen Blue Beetle?
No, but I want to.
I've heard good things.
It's okay. For me, I mean, it's kind of a fun little superhero origin story. He's not as much fun as he is in, the Teen Titans animated movies, because he's not a teenager. He's a college graduate. So he's 22. But my issue with the movie is that they even say in part of the movie where they're talking about the old Blue Beetle, not Jaime Reyes, but the old one. They're he's like Batman, but he has a sense of humor. And this movie, with the exception of George Lopez, who actually says that line about the sense of humor, and Susan Sarandon, who kind of plays the big baddie, the movie doesn't have a sense of humor. George Lopez and Susan Sarandon understood the assignment. They're trying to make it like this campy, Deadpool kind of thing, but everyone else is trying to make it Iron Man and make it be a serious superhero movie. And it's impressive. It has some good fights. It's got some good special effects. But the thing is, there's no sense of humor to it really. So it's just another superhero movie, which it could have been something a lot more fun. But it does its job. It's just that there are so many, especially with DC piling them it on right now. There are so many superhero movies, but this is somewhere between Shazam: Fury of the Gods and The Flash is where this one lays.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but just in general, it kind of feels like just how people are approaching the DC films now, because they know all of this is getting scrapped, like this universe of it. Even though Blue Beetle is said to be a part of the new one, it does kind of feel like people have given up on the DC movies. I haven't watched The Flash yet. It did just hit Max, but I made the mistake of texting my buddy, "Hey, Flash finally hit Max. I know you were waiting. What'd you think of it?" And I got like 2 pages full of like text critique from him on it, and I was like, oh no, because I was actually kind of looking forward to, like, I was avoiding everything. I did watch that the big cameo bit that leaked on Twitter, and that was rough. But again, Jay, if you really like, I know I said it last episode, but if you're really liking Blue Beetle is a huge part of Young Justice season 2.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's worth checking out. It's just that I feel like they could have made it more. It could have been great when it's only good, But Susan Sarandon is actually a pretty amazing, kind of in that Malin Ackerman from Rampage type way. She's a pretty great villain. I love Susan Sarandon. I mean, I'm a Rocky Horror kid, so I kind of have to love Susan Sarandon. But whenever I see her pop up in anything, like she had a one episode of Friends that she's in. Whenever that episode's on, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on Janet.
I actually was just about to say, because I've been obsessively listening to the Shock Treatment soundtrack again. That thing that happens once a year where I suddenly go, man, that soundtrack's a fucking banger in it. Who's your preferred Janet then? Susan Sarandon or Jessica Harper?
See, Susan Sarandon to me will always be Janet, but Jessica Harper can sing circles around Susan Sarandon.
That's fair.
So I think as a Janet, Susan Sarandon, but as a vocalist, I'll take Jessica Harper.
It is funny because I was the one that posed the question, and I don't think it's a fair question either, because they're 2 different Janets, and like, Susan Sarandon's Janet definitely comes into her own with her sexuality for a moment, not too long, but Jessica Harper's Janet in Shock Treatment comes into her own and just being that bitch. She's fucking awesome. Like her whole song about it's me, I'm me, or even just
I've never seen Shock Treatment.
Buddy, we got to change that. You need to watch Shock Treatment.
I know.
Shock Treatment is it's really underrated because a lot of people, I think, when they compare it to Rocky Horror, they're like disappointed. But the thing is, it's
not a sequel.
Music. Well, it's kind of a sequel. It's got the same characters. Yeah, it's an equal. That's a great way to put it.
That's the tagline for the movie. They were like, "No, we're not doing a sequel. It's an equal."
I will put the soundtrack for Shock Treatment up against Rocky Horrors. The music is amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they've got better singers. I mean, with the exception of Tim Curry, and then. The thing is, Richard O'Brien, Little Nell, and Patricia Quinn are all in Shock Treatment as well. They play different characters, but they're all in it as well. But there's a better Janet. There's a better Brad because it's Cliff DeYoung.
Oh, he's so good. And he plays 2 roles in it.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're spoiling.
I didn't say who the other one was.
Yeah, no, you're not, because he obviously plays 2 roles. You just don't know right away who they both are. Yeah. But dude, Shock Treatment's awesome. I love Shock Treatment.
What's so great about Shock Treatment? I love how this quickly turned into like loving Shock Treatment is that it critiques reality TV like 20 years before reality TV was a thing.
Yeah, reality TV was not a thing when Shock Treatment. Yeah, it is, but it's because the thing is, Jacob, the kind of setup is Denton, where Brad and Janet are from. It's basically kind of like a Truman Show kind of thing where it's set up as basically a television studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so every person in town is a character in this TV show, basically.
Yeah, they're either in the TV show or they're in the audience, to the point where when the show is done, the audience just sleeps in the bleachers.
In their seat.
Yeah, and if Rocky Horror Picture Show is all, or Rocky Horror Show is all about like sexuality and and critiquing of the American suburbia views on that, then Shock Treatment is really going after consumerism and capitalism and television consumption.
It's more television consumption, but it's funny because Brad and Janet, they're married, but it goes places. Janet kind of steps out of her own, she stops being Brad's wife and becomes her own thing. And the thing is, Ralph and Betty have bigger parts in this one too, who are basically just bit players in Rocky Horror. It's so much fun.
Oh no, the whole premise is they're married, they go on a TV show to compete, but Brad loses, and so Janet, and so he gets locked up in an insane asylum for losing prizes on the game show, and Janet kind of becomes like her own like egotistical like television diva, and it's
she becomes a big star. Everyone loves her, so like she is becoming like, I guess, a Real Housewife. I don't know, but
she even sings the line, "If only he could win a prize."
Okay, I'll definitely be adding that to the watch list.
It's so good. Speaking of musicals, excellent segue. We talked about it before, but Metalocalypse, Army of the Doomstar finally came out.
Yes,
and
I've been meaning to see it.
It is perfection. I did a complete rewatch of Metalocalypse, including the Doomstar Requiem, which is still amazing. And it's annoying how much I know. Like, I get it. I can't make fun of theater kids, because when theater kids, when they hear a song from it and they break out in song, that's me with Doomstar Requiem now. But Army of the Doomstar is phenomenal. It's the finale movie for Metalocalypse, which, if you don't know the show, it follows the most popular metal band of all time to the point where they're an economic powerhouse, and like the entire world's economy is based around them. So like, if they
like coffee,
we're here to turn coffee metal. Like, thousands of fans show up just to hear them do a coffee jingle in like the first episode. But all throughout the series, there's this plot thread about these like
Illuminati type conspiracy.
Yeah, there's an Illuminati group. There's these old stories and myths about the Doomstar and how the Metalocalypse is upon them. Like, the show is called Metalocalypse, and Army of the Doomstar finally brings you to, okay, this is the Metalocalypse. This is how it happens. And it is not only just such a great finale, they wrap up everything nicely, but it's a huge love letter to the fans, because after Doomstar Requiem, Adult Swim canceled it and like would not allow anything to happen outside of Brendan Small touring live as Death Clock, to the point where there was multiple times where Adult Swim was like trolling fans and being like, oh, do you want Metalocalypse to come back? Email us or fax us at this thing. And they would have a live stream of a fax machine where every time a letter came in, after it printed, it would fall right immediately into a paper shredder.
What?
I don't know what the whole deal is. There was some like behind the scenes drama, but it was basically for 10 years, people were like going like, come on, give it a finale, let it end properly. There's too many threads that are not ended with the show. And with Max, they were like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're going to get a movie. So Brendan Small spent like the entire pandemic working with like, brought back a lot of the people that worked on the show. And they really did like everything. Like, all right, what are some loose ends that we never tied up? What are this? And like the first like 5 minutes of the show of the movie is them being interviewed, and they're like, hey, so it's been a really long time since Death Clock has released anything. And like, yeah, we're back. We're gonna go on tour and we're gonna make an album, and it's gonna be fucking great. But yeah, some people thought you guys were never gonna come back. Oh yeah, well, those people fucking suck. Fuck you guys who thought we'd never come back. Like, that's like the whole first 5 minutes. but it's metal as fuck. The animation's phenomenal. They really did a great job of like, all right, we have a bit more of a budget because Metalocalypse is one of those Adult Swim shows that always had like a bit of cheap animation look and style to it, like that Hanna-Barbera look.
My favorite thing about Metalocalypse and Death Clock is one of the features on one of the early DVDs, and I think you can find this on YouTube. It had a guitar instruction video by one of the guitar players. And working at Guitar Center at the time, I was real familiar with these guitar instruction videos, and it was perfect, just like it. And the guy's like there, he's all, so this we're going to learn how to play the solos, and if you watch his hands, he's really playing what he's telling you. Like the animation is amazing, and he'll be like, oh, that sounds good. Here you go. He's it's like, it's just hilarious the way that he's, and here we go. And this part here goes.
I'm telling you that it's such it's so good. And Death Album 4 is phenomenal. I mean, like, how could you not love songs like Aortic Desecration?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm on my vacation right now, and every time I go to Connecticut, I always got to go to the archives. So I went to the Vinegar Syndrome Archive in Bridgeport, and It is amazing how much they've expanded it. Like it's like a few floors now in the basement. They've got like a back room now for like books and merch and comics and magazines. And as always, their spread is unimaginably good. Like I could spend my life savings there.
It's very easy to do that there. The one time I went there, I was like, oh, wow, Rollerball media book from Germany. Yeah, I'll drop $70 on that, I guess.
You and your Rollerball.
Fucking love Rollerball.
You got to have Rollerball.
Oh, I love Rollerball too, but you're like, how many versions of it do you have?
Oh,
5, 4?
I think we're only at 4. We don't need to be judgmental, okay? Although very quickly, Wicker Man is becoming my new, because I was like, all right, finally got rid of my old copies. I have the definitive Blu-ray, and then they're like, well, now the definitive 4K is coming out in England. Well, shit, now I got to get that. And then apparently Lionsgate is also putting it out in 4K, so I got to get that too.
Everybody's putting it out on 4K.
None of this compares to The Thing, though. Don't you still have the most copies of The Thing?
Yeah, I only have 4 copies of Rollerball. Thank you very much. And
only 4.
Yes, I do have 7 different versions of The Thing. But let's stop judging Korea for a minute. Jacob, the archive.
I've told you how many copies of Night of the Living Dead I have.
That one's an easy one to fall into, although you can get rid of most of them and just keep the 4K from Criterion.
Yeah, now that I have the Criterion, the others just kind of sit there.
Yeah. Maybe keep like one really shitty copy for the nostalgia and keep a colorized version.
Yeah, it's not getting bootlegged so much these days. But yeah, while I was there, I got got the TerrorVision release of Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2, the soundtrack on vinyl for really cheap. I also got the Halloween/Christmas episodes of Beavis and Butthead on DVD, Butterween, and and also I got The Taking of Tiger Mountain, that Bill Paxton art house movie.
That's the one where you see his peen, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say you see Bill Paxton's dong.
To quote Troy McClure, and now what you all came here to see, hardcore nudity. Mm-hmm. And off on actual straight up horror movies I've seen recently. Before I left, I did get to see The Meg 2: The Trench in 3D.
Oh, what'd you think?
That movie kicked ass. Like, I don't see why so many people were dunking on it, because it's like it felt like in line with like Deep Rising or something like that. It very much a kind of throwbacky kind of 90s style action horror movie. And I mean, we didn't just get megalodons, we got like a giant squid, we got like those amphibious iguanodon things and giant crabs. So like I dug it. I was into it.
See, Lindsay and I went to the premiere, which because of the strikes, they're changing it up. And with that one, they had it like on the water. And they had food trucks and stuff for everyone, which was awesome, but we had to leave halfway through because had to go to Shrek Rave, which, can't miss Shrek Rave. That was like a religious experience, hearing all the different EDM versions of, All Star.
I can only imagine.
But it was a lot of fun. I've been meaning to go back and see it. I was going to try to see it in 4DX, but they only had it in 3D 4DX, and that's too many Ds. I'm sorry. Like, What are the other? Like, they're both going to make me nauseous. I don't need 2 things making me nauseous, all right? But
double your nausea, double your fun.
No, that's not how that works at all.
Yeah, well, either way, you get to see Jason Statham try and harpoon a 60-foot shark. Like
On a jet ski.
that's cinema on a jet ski. Now that to me is cinema.
I'll tell you where my mind is when we were talking about Bill Paxton. When you started saying you get to see Jason Statham, I was like, Jason Statham, what? No, yeah,
Get your mind out of the gutter, James.
Well, actually, perfect segue. If we're going to talk about male nudity, I just watched this morning, actually, right before we recorded, this new movie called Swallowed that came out earlier this year. Yeah, how's that for a segue, boys? Swallowed
Your
is
segues are undefeatable.
I'm like, how's that for a title? What's this about?
Oh, sweetie. So it's one of the new films.
I'm checking explicit language on this episode already, so let us know.
Well, we always have to fucking do that because one of these assholes always is swearing. No.
Which asshole is that? Oh, wait a minute. I just
It's me. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. So it's one of the new films from Carter Smith, who did The Ruins, and his other new film, The Passenger, also came out, but one was a bit cheaper to rent, so that was my decision making with that between those two. But Swallowed is really good. It follows this young man who's about to move from Maine to LA to become a gay porn star, and so his best friend, as like a going away present, tries to get him some extra money to be able to make the trip. And the only way you can do that is by transporting drugs across the Canadian to American border, which doesn't go well. So they have to swallow the drugs, right? And get them out later.
Um,
that's not what I thought this movie is going to be about.
It's a bit there, Carter Smith, with The Ruins was very body horror, and Swallowed is that too, but like in a very different way. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically the best friend who swallowed more of them gets punched, and it kind of activates what's in his stomach.
It'll break the balloon. Yeah, that's the big issue with swallowing balloons of drugs.
Yeah,
is if not that I have any practical experience with that. But
we're not admitting anything on a recorded line. But also, is it drugs? Is it not? What is it? It's actually really creepy what it is. But yeah, it's got Jenna Malone is the kind of like the drug runner that gets them into it. And it's Cooper Coach and Jose Colin are the two best friends that go on this journey. And about halfway to like 2/3 into it, Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, pops up as the like gangster who's in charge of the operation, and he is fucking awesome. He's just this big fabulous gangster. At one point, he says the line, "You've done cock teased the wrong fucking queen," while chasing someone through the woods. It's great. But yeah, Swallowed. It's very solid, very uncomfortable with some of its body horror moments, but very good. There is, and if you are looking for nail nudity, there is a bit, and it's great. Because yeah, dude, release the peen. Like, I think people are being too prudish and not showing that stuff. So. But yeah, Swallowed. It's available to rent now on VOD. It's really solid. Also, The Passenger is too. I think that one went on to MGM Plus, but who remembers that that's a thing?
I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And then to beat Jacob, I went to some repertory screenings this week. Real quick, I did the Riff Tracks live for Rad, which was my first Riff Tracks live event. I've seen them stream, but never went to a live event. And boy, howdy, was it great seeing Rad with some commentary. And the Riff Track boys did not let Lori Lawton off easy.
Oh no.
Yeah, I forgot that there was a great moment in Rad where she flat out tells someone, "Oh, well, my friend took a year off from college and then went," and they're like, "Oh yes, always go to Lori Lawton for the college admission advice." Yeah. It was really good. And then we went and saw Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which was great seeing with the crowd, especially since the crowd was cheering every time at the beginning of Kill Bill Volume 1, every time someone's name came up, Uma Thurman, yeah, Lucy Liu, yeah. And then it goes executive produced by the Weinsteins, boo, like the loudest boos. It was phenomenal. And what made it, I will say, if you're able to go see something at the Hollywood Cemetery, it's great. It's a fun venue. You get to bring your own chairs and stuff. Maybe if there's something with subtitles, that might be hard because there's a lot of people's heads in the way a little bit. But it's so much fun, especially with that one. They had like an hour-long dance break, which was great to take a nap and be ready to stay up for Volume 2. And of course, because we were at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, we got to visit my girl Estelle Getty on the way out, which is nice because if you're walking in, hers is like behind a row of shrubbery, but her tombstone pokes out over the top of the shrubbery, so you can see Getty. So it's almost like she's little Sophia is poking her head up, going, "Don't forget to say hi."
Yeah. And also, speaking of horror movies that came out earlier this year, I actually managed to see Jolo Truglio's Outpost while I was flying into the East Coast. Did either of you guys see it?
No. Mm-mm. That sounds dope, though.
Yeah, no, it was solid. Like I remember reading about it in Fangoria, and it's pretty interesting because it's basically about this woman who was attacked by her boyfriend, and during her recovery process, she decides to go to I think it's Iowa, and she takes a job as a outpost captain, where like you're in a fire outpost to look into the forest and make sure there aren't any fires, and she's dealing with that trauma while also just kind of isolated. So, only a matter of time before shit starts to get weird up in the mountain. Also, Dylan Baker's in it, perennial character actor favorite Dylan Baker, and he plays kind of this gruff, isolated outdoorsman who lives in a cabin like next to her outpost. And she has these kind of weird encounters with him and some other people, and it's real escalation. Like in Fangoria, Truglio even said like one of his biggest influences was The Shining, which definitely shows. But like again, I just love the trend of more comedian or comedy oriented actors and writers getting into horror directing and filmmaking. So I mean, I thought it was pretty good for a first effort, and looking forward to what he does next.
One thing that I saw that is from this year that I kind of caught up with. Have either of you guys seen The Pope's Exorcist?
No, but I wanted to.
I've seen the memes.
It's. The thing is, it's not bad. It's Russell Crowe is the Pope's exorcist, and he's sent to perform an exorcism. Alex Esso from Starry Eyes and all of the Flanagan miniseries, she's the mom of the kid that's possessed. The kid that is possessed is incredible. I don't know what the kid's name is, but the voice of the demon that's in the kid is Ralph Ineson from The Witch, and it's weird because it's pretty much a remake of The Exorcist, except in the last act it really, really goes places. But the thing is, it's like it's so much more fun than I kind of compare it subconsciously to Pray for the Devil, because I don't know, maybe they came out so close together, but it's so much more fun than Pray for the Devil. I mean, even though it's about an exorcism, it's just a lot more fun. And the other thing I saw, which we'll close this opening part of the podcast with this. Have you guys seen Grizzly 2?
No, I have not.
No, because it's not a finished movie.
It is not a finished movie. That's the funny thing. Okay, they shot this, and I'm going pretty fast and loose with the term shot, in 1983. And the thing is, they kept running out of money, so they kept having to stop shooting it, or people were like putting in their own money or working for free or something. And this footage sat around for almost 40 years, and then someone finally finished it. Quote, finished it in air quotes. And it is it's not a finished movie. It's 75 minutes long, 74 minutes, and about 30 of it. The whole thing is they're in a national park where there's going to be this big rock concert. And of course, there's a bear on the loose. So there are people trying to kill the bear, but there's this huge US festival type of a concert happening that the bear is heading for. And about 30 minutes of this 75 minutes or 74 minutes is just useless concert footage that is like, it's like, oh man, we've only got 20 minutes worth of actual movie here. Let's pad this. But the funniest thing about it is when I first hit play and I'm watching it, the opening credits, it's all George Clooney. And I'm like that Vince McMahon meme where his head keeps blowing up with each thing. It's all George Clooney, Laura Dern, Charlie Sheen. And I'm like, oh my God, this cast. All three of them die within the first 3 minutes. I know that I'm spoiling. It's actually not 3 minutes, but they definitely die before the movie even gets rolling.
Wasn't it also before they all became names too? Like
Yes.
they were basically just extras in this movie.
This was 1983. They weren't extras. They were main characters. But this is before George Clooney became George Clooney. I think, he was, this is pre-ER. Laura Dern, this might have even been pre-Mask for her. Charlie Sheen, he was kind of a child star, so he might have been doing like Lucas around this time. But none of them were who they are today. So, oh my God. But anyway, Grizzly 2. It's nice and short. And the Grizzly is actually kind of fun because I heard that they use some footage of real bears. I heard there was an animatronic Grizzly, but I'm not sure any of that's in there. Most of it looks like puppetry. So it is kind of a fun little creature feature, but oh my God. It's you're right. It's not a finished movie. It's someone totally forced it to finish it. Once Clooney, Dern, and Sheen are dead, Louise Fletcher becomes like the big name in it, which is kind of weird. It's like, wait, you won an Oscar and you're in this?
Hey man, rent's got to get paid one way or another.
Yeah, but did it get paid? They kept running out of money. Did she get paid for this?
That is true.
Let's move on to our topic, which is near and dear to my heart, even though it was brought to us by Korea. Punk rock in horror.
Yes.
And basically, it's funny because punk rock, especially in the 80s, always kind of played like almost like a guest role and everything. It was almost like a fad or a trend or like a something that, hey, look over there. There are punks. It was something to look at kind of. Yeah. So they always put them in, we're talking about Bill Paxton in Terminator, he's the punk in Terminator. Who speaking of Bill Paxton nude, doesn't he end up giving Schwarzenegger his clothes?
Yeah. Well, not willingly. Not willingly. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. One of the things that prompted is I finally got a copy of Destroy All Movies, the complete guide to punks on film. And one of the things that they make a really good point of in the beginning of it is, yes, the fad, right? Because who's making movies, right? It's Hollywood. It's people with money. Who doesn't have money? Punks. So a lot of punk representation in films is not made by punks. So when you do have people showing up like Bill Paxton as a punk in Terminator or something, it's a caricature of it. Yeah. And that's the part of like exploring representation of punk in film interests me, is how much of it is like good representation of the culture or how much of it is a characterization, is a cartoon characterization of it, right? Because how many times is there something where it's like, oh yeah, that person's bad, look at their giant green mohawk.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Without that, we wouldn't have the amazing bit in Star Trek 4. Yes, we're going back to Star Trek, where it's the punk on the bus and he has the boombox and he's playing the song that says, "I hate this, I hate that," and Spock knocks him out. Great stuff.
and everybody applauded him for it. But yeah, no, punk and horror, I feel like really go hand in hand, especially within one of the biggest eras for both in the 80s, because you got a lot of horror inspired lyrics and a lot of punk music, and you get a lot of punks and a lot of horror movies. So it's like a Venn diagram or just straight up circle.
One of the best ones out there, I mean, like if we're going to talk about definitive like representation of punk in film, where it's in a horror film where it's both like you got a little bit of everything. You got the cartoon characters, but you got it, and it's actually like a part of it. Because so many times, especially in this book, it's like, oh yeah, in this movie, there's a guy with a green mohawk. You're right. Return of Living Dead is, I think, the like definitive, like everything about it, whether it's the characters or just even the story and how things play out, it's punk rock as fuck, because it's just about like going against the system. There's reference pop culture references across the board, even at the very beginning. You know that movie Night of the Living Dead? Well, it wasn't a fiction, you know. And just the nihilism with it, with trash, you know. You ever think about death?
The punks in Return of the Living Dead were kind of caricatures.
Mm-hmm.
So it, like you were saying, it's kind of like, I mean, the ideas were there, but the way they looked and stuff. And my favorite part of that, it's like kind of the quote. It's the quote that sums up punk rock in general. When trash is rubbing all up and down on, I don't remember the character's name, the badass guy. He's all, yeah, Suicide. And he's all, what do you think? This is a costume? This is a way of life. Show some respect for the dead. And she's like, I like it spooky. She's like,
but that's what's great is like it's fine. It does both, right? It uses the caricatures of that time, especially by that time, because like Hollywood started throwing the, you know, punks in movies and not knowing anything about the culture or anything. They were just like, look at these spooky looking guys. And like,
yeah, no, that's the genius of the movie to me with Dan O'Bannon, is that, you know, he updated it for, you know, the time, because you know, Night of the Living Dead was just, you know, the original Night of the Living Dead, it was kind of like a group of average people, and he did that for 85, where it's like, you know, punk's really big, so he figured, you know, a lot of kids are into punk, so why not have a zombie movie with a bunch of punks? Yeah. And yeah, no, and they are like, I mean, they're not, you know, that deep, but at the same time, they're not one dimensional either. Like, they're just a bunch of kids just trying to have fun.
I think they're actually pretty well written. I think it's whoever costumed that movie that made it a caricature, you know. Although, you know, to their credit, they did just get, instead of giving Linnea Quigley a green mohawk, they just gave her, you know, short purple hair.
Yeah. Icon.
And Miguel A. Nunez as Spider was always one of my favorites. Just him responding to her, like, you ever fantasize about dying? It's like, I try not to.
Like, his face just absolutely reads, the fuck did you just say? That's not normal. I mean, it's not horror, but I mean, Repo Man, I think if you're looking for like fiction that captures the aesthetic and culture really well, it's Repo Man and Suburbia, hands down. I mean, those movies were made by people who were in the culture, were part of it, and represented it well. I mean, especially, I mean, Suburbia, that the entire cast was a bunch of gutter punks anyway. So, I mean, how could you not? And then Repo Man, you know, Alex Cox, somehow, like, it is funny when you get like Penelope Spheres, who says, I can teach punks how to act. I can't teach actors how to be punk.
Yeah.
And then Alex Cox goes, Emilio Estevez, come on, challenge accepted. Let's do this, bud.
I think the best representative of modern punk rock in movie is Green Room. Yeah. Not so much the Nazi part. I think the Nazi part would probably not be as sneaky. If Nazis are going to beat the shit out of someone, I think they would just swarm them, you know. But as far as the touring band goes, the Ain't Rights, that's pretty much, you know, what touring in a band is.
I was gonna say, was that a bit too accurate? Like, with the sleeping on the guy's floor and stuff.
That's
and
absolutely
like
accurate.
Siphon and gas and all that.
We never stole any gas. We never did the siphoning gas thing. But yeah, everybody piled in a van, crashed on people's floors, showing up and having the show either suck or be canceled. We never played a place quite like that. There is a place in all places up in Fallbrook, which is a little north of San Diego, but that's like supposedly like the Metzger KKK capital. Yeah. That would get kind of scary at times. But there were also a bunch of cool kids up there so it was always kind of half and half, you know, and the cool kids would police the Nazis kind of a thing. So it was kind of cool. The guy who owned the place was kind of an ass. I never could figure out what side of the fence he fell on, but the kids up there were awesome.
Yeah, and when it comes to punks and horror, especially in more modern films, the one that comes immediately to mind would be Jen Wexler's The Ranger. Like, you guys saw that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a great example, especially because, you know, it's very much a throwback movie, because I think it's period film set in the 80s where, it's like a group of punks escaped from like a raid on a punk show, and they stabbed a cop, so they got to hide out in the woods. And there's this psycho park ranger going around killing everybody. Yeah, no, and it's like Return of the Living Dead. They got a pretty cool kind of crew of punks together as our lead characters, and it's the ultimate, like punk versus authority thing, because it's this this psycho ranger who's obsessed with the rules fighting these anarchist punks.
No, the Ranger is fantastic, even just as like a modern slasher adaptation. Like, and that's one of the things about the book Destroy All Movies is they stop at before the 2000s with the representation. So they miss out on those titles, and it's a few years out of print too. So I think it came out before the Ranger. So unfortunately, that wasn't added there, but. Another iconic cartoon representation, but even when it's like cartoon, I still feel like if the film has the attitude of punk, it's okay. And that's Class of 1984, because those guys are cartoonish as fuck in that.
They're not really that cartoonish. Like there's no mohawks, at least in the regular gang, but the way they act, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely playing into the Reagan era fears of the next generation. And like these out of control youths are just going to go around, just killing and stealing and attacking everybody.
That's the thing. It was supposed to be a warning. At the beginning, it's like, oh, this is where we're headed. So because there in the early 80s, there was a time when people were afraid of punks, and it was it was heading toward this. And the punks in Class of 1984 they're drug dealers, and they're violent. They beat the crap out of people, but that part is cartoonish,
right?
But also, what's not is the teacher basically finds out that the leader of these punks is actually a really talented musician, and so that's kind of your Quincy moment, I guess, your Chips moment, where it's the misunderstood punk. But I don't think he was misunderstood. I just think he happened to be a talented musician who was a little crazy.
But I mean, and it is interesting too, because especially if you look at the sequel, Class of 1990, I believe it is.
Class of 1999.
Yeah, 99.
99. I was off by a few years. But the shift in fear becomes less about like the kids being violent, and it's more the response to the violence of youth, right? Because in that one, it's the teachers are all like cyborg robots that were originally made by the military, and so they get triggered and turned and become killing machines against them. And yeah, that was part of Pam Grier's resurgence, because she was getting back to good health. And so she started doing a lot of movies like that before Jackie Brown.
Yeah, and I love that like new wave Stacy Keach is the one behind it. Like he's got like that bleached white hair and the ponytail, and he's like, this is the proper response to the youth. And yeah, even though the high schoolers are in gangs and stuff, like they release military war androids on them. So the punks are actually the heroes in that one.
It was made in 1990 Korea.
Oh, that's why.
But it was a futuristic look at 1999 with the cyborg teachers, which, man, remember those cyborg teachers in 1999?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I remember.
Don't even get me started about the substitute cyborg teachers, like in Class of 1999 too, the substitute. Oh.
Isn't Soylent Green takes place in 2023? So why aren't we eating people yet?
Give it time.
I've been saying that for years.
It's only August. Give it time.
I mean, we've gotten a few examples politically on why we should be putting in some Soylent Green initiatives of at least putting age gaps or age restrictions on our politicians, but let's not get political here.
And back on the more cartoonist side of punk representation in horror movies, one particular example that comes to mind, and going off of Class of 94, would be the Class of Nukem High movies, which I guess go hand in hand with a lot of trauma movies, because there were a lot of punks and a lot of trauma films, and they like played them up to the most absurd possible degrees. Because like in Class of Nukem High, they're straight up mutants.
Yeah,
and just going around killing people and like it wasn't like they used to be the chess club, then they got irradiated and they became like psycho punks.
Psycho mutant punks. Yeah, it's great. I mean, Trauma, I'd say, is like as a studio is probably the ones that are like the most hard in that going hard on the cartoonish side of like representation of punk. I mean, you got Class of Nukem High series, you got Surf Nazis Must Die.
Oh yeah.
Even like
Romeo
Toxic
and
Avenger.
Juliet.
Yeah. But I would say like mentality wise, they are punk rock as fuck. They're super low budget. It's all about like being working together. Like they really cultivate like a family. If you've ever worked on something that's Trauma, everyone feels like a family member and is contributing, even though there's like little to no money in it. I mean, if everyone calls Lloyd Kaufman Uncle Lloydie, you know.
I mean, Lloyd's probably not making a shit ton of money on all these movies either. He's probably existing because he makes so many of them
and acquires and distributes.
Yeah.
And it's great that that spirit is kept alive across all of them. Because again, even their first big hit, Toxic Avenger, has, you know, punks in it and stuff. And yeah, just the over the topness, but they're always taking care of each other. Those are very safe sets that Lloyd runs. There's no money, and the money is all there on screen. But they're very safe. They take care of each other very well. So yeah. But yeah, Class of Nukem. There's I always love that they mutate into punk rock anarchism.
Trauma is totally punk rock. I mean, like, yeah. What about metal bands that are like considered punk rock? You know, it's the same kind of thing we were talking about with like Fear, like Trick or Treat,
or Black Roses,
or American Satan. Remember American Satan from like, oh, maybe like it was the movie past days. But no, Trick or Treat came along at a time when the government, and when I say the government, I mean Tipper Gore, was trying to ban heavy metal lyrics and rap lyrics. So Trick or Treat was kind of a direct response to that, you know, to the PMRC and you know, the backward messages and summoning Sammy Kerr, it's like the evils of basically this movie made, quote, real what the PMRC was afraid of. Is kind of making fun of them. It's like, oh, is this what's going to happen? Is this what's going to happen? Yeah. You better put that warning label on or this is going to happen. You know?
Tipper Gore was right.
No.
Well, he was right in also another movie that I think also has a character that I think the most screen accurate fictional character in a horror movie to represent punk is Terry in The Gate, right? He's just this nerdy 14-year-old who's like angry. And so he expresses himself in the music that he listens to. And he does playing the record backwards and all that, which opens the gate to hell and brings out the demons. But Terry's fucking fantastic. I love it. He's just like this little dweeby kid, but he feels empowered by his armor, putting on the vest with the patches and everything. And I think that's pure punk right there.
And on a similar note, you know, I also like TerrorVision from Full Moon that also featured some punks. Like there was the punk sister and her boyfriend, and they were kind of jerks, but you know, also like they kind of help pitch in once the monster goes on a rampage. And Full Moon, and so, similar to Trauma, I feel like Full Moon had a lot of punks in their movies, especially in the '80s, because there's also the two punk girls, hitchhikers in Stuart Gordon's Dolls, who were just kind of jerks.
Yeah. I was about to bring up Dolls, actually. Yeah.
Have you guys seen New Year's Evil?
No.
I have.
New Year's Evil you got to see New Year's Evil, Korea. You got to track it down somewhere.
It's fun.
It's awesome, but it basically is about like a Dick Clark rockin' New Year's Eve party that's going on New Year's Eve, but they count down every time zone, and the killer kills someone at midnight in every time zone, and he's stalking the host of this you know, new wave punk rockin' Dick Clark's New Year's Eve thing, who is like some kind of radio DJ. And there are two bands that play in it. And one of them is called Made in Japan, which they're just kind of more disposable. But there's another band called Shadow who does the theme song to New Year's Eve, plus like 4 or 5 other songs in the movie. And they rock. Shadow is like as good a reason as any to watch New Year's Evil. but there are punks all over that just because, they're in the audience of this, rocking out to Shadow and Made in Japan. And again, this was the early 80s. So it was kind of that cartoon look of it. But it also, they were more friendly. It was more of a party time look of punks instead of like a class of 1984, we're going to beat the crap out of you. The guy who's doing the killing is not necessarily one of the punks.
Right.
They weren't villains. It was almost like a gimmick, like hey, yeah, this is what the punk scene looks like, which is not accurate at all. But, like the punks in Savage Streets, you don't have those guys walking around looking like that.
Now, what about punks on screen? Like because remember in the 80s, it was also that period where a lot of musicians were popping up in movies in like small roles. Like you had one of the members of X in Roadhouse, or Anthony Kiedis in Point Break, but the most prolific punk actor, I'd say, is Lee Ving.
Lee Ving, yeah.
Yeah. What's one of your guys' favorite Lee Ving roles? Because for me, it's of course Streets of Fire. I mean, him as Greer, he is the second most terrifying person in that movie after William Dafoe. Like you can't top William Dafoe in a leather overalls, screaming, "I'm gonna get you!"
Yeah, no, I mean that was a particular highlight. Although looking through, this wasn't really horror, but Lee Ving was also in the 1983 Alan Arkush rock comedy Get Crazy, which also had a pretty substantial punk representation. And yeah, I mean that's a fun one because I mean it's basically a punk airplane.
Damn, I'm gonna have to check that one out.
He was the voice of the punk in American pop.
That's true.
But he was also he was the victim in Clue.
That's
Mr.
right.
Body.
Yeah,
he
was Mr. Body.
Yeah,
Mr. Body.
Forgot about that.
Oh shit! You know what? I just got that joke. That his name is Mr.
You just
Body.
got that?
I just got that fucking joke.
Oh man, it only took like 30 years.
Let me tell you, I may have told this story before. It took me literally 20 years of listening like religiously to the Spinal Tap soundtrack to get the double meaning behind how could I leave this behind in Big Bottom. I always thought, well, he doesn't want to leave his girl behind. Yeah, how could he leave her behind? And then I'm like, wait a minute. The behind is what he doesn't want to leave. Yeah.
Right over the head.
Yeah. For those of you listening, Korea is doing the over the head sign. It totally did for 20 years.
Jesus. We're gonna have to do a whole episode of like things we didn't get. Double entendres. But yeah. So
just back on to John Doe, in Roadhouse. He was also in Boogie Nights, the best movie ever.
That's right.
He was Amber Wave's husband in the ex-husband in the court scene where he's like, my wife is a porn star. John Doe had actually a pretty cool little acting career, outside of X.
Yeah, he popped up in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And speaking of Roadhouse, let's not forget to give a shout out R.I.P. to Terry Funk, who passed away recently. WWE legend, and of course one of the best parts of Roadhouse and Over the Top.
Yeah.
Over the Top.
He was Rucker.
I want to bring this back to another movie that I talk about a lot, although I haven't lately, because it came out on Blu-ray and I don't have to. There was a punk band called the Sick Fucks in Alone in the Dark, and two of the members of the Sick Fucks actually invented Manic Panic hair dye, so they were influential on the modern punk scene.
Oh, damn. I guess I have another reason to finally watch Alone in the Dark, which I still haven't watched.
You have not watched Alone in the Dark or New Year's Evil. Dude, double feature tonight.
Dude, I know. I as soon as you brought up Alone in the Dark, I'm like, fuck, Jay's going to hate me. This is like the 8th time he's brought it up since the Blu-ray came out.
I was going to say, and I know you own that Blu-ray, right? It's Shout Factory. Yeah. You own them all. Yeah.
I don't anymore. I sold a few of them because I was just like, I need to make room, dude. It's getting bad in here, man. It's getting bad.
I not even Blu-rays. I just need to get rid of like little gimmicky tchotchke things that I own and stuff. I need to have like a horror garage sale or, open up an Etsy store for the crap that I have.
Maybe we should do that. We should have an Eye on Horror garage sale one day.
Oh, I'm sure we could clear a whole garage sale out.
Come on by. Get some.
Get some knickknacks and curios.
We have a few Rampage water bottles left over. No.
We'll hire Restless Spirit to play it, but they'll only play Young Graves the whole time.
There you go.
All right. Final thoughts on punk in horror. What do you got?
Well, I think punk will never die, and neither will horror. So I think those two genres will be intertwined forever, and we'll be seeing more punks in horror again sooner or later.
To paraphrase Colors, the punks in horror will never die, just multiply.
Yeah.
And when it comes to punk representation and characterization in films, I'm gonna misquote a Scotsman I once met when I was out in Scotland. One of them said, "Have you ever seen Braveheart?" I went, "Yes," and they're like, "It's historically inaccurate, but we love it because it's a bunch of Scots killing Englishmen, right?" And I feel like it's the same with punks in film. Like, it doesn't matter if we're miscategorized. It doesn't matter, if we're cartoonish things. What matters is, do they fuck shit up? Great. At least you got that part right.
Well, and a lot of time they'll get the music right. Like even if they do look silly or something, they'll be blasting, like a Fear song or a Misfits song or, or 45 Grave or whatever, a lot of times, they'll at least get that part right. Mm-hmm. So the punks, even if they're like, well, I don't look like that, but fuck yeah, I want to party.
Yeah. Hey, even Star Trek got it right with the music, and they cameoed that guy in season 2 of Picard. He was on the bus and he had a beard, he had the boombox, and then instead of blasting "I hate this, I hate that," it was "I still hate this, I still hate that." And then 7 and 9 stepped up to him and he was like, "No, I'll shut it off. I learned my lesson." It was great. So,
was he the same character even?
It was the same actor like 40 years later.
That's
it was
awesome.
Great. It's like the best part of season 2. Season 2 was very meh.
That's the thing about Green Room. When they went into that Nazi place, they played Nazi Punks Fuck Off by Dead Kennedys. And, so you think they're going to get their asses kicked, but the Nazis were like, this isn't why the Nazis are trying to kill these guys, by the way. They actually, the Nazis respected that. They're like, all right.
You got balls.
We got you. Yeah, totally. You got balls. Other shit happens where they're trying to kill them.
Either way, you should see Green Room. Watch Green Room. It's a great movie.
Korea has seen Green Room.
Yes, many times. And I agree with Jay on the misrepresentation of Nazi punks and just being, they're too organized in that movie. They're too organized. They're not that smart.
Even the ones in, say, like American History X, where they are just as organized as that, it was more, that's a little more realistic of the, they're not going to sneak up on you so much as they're just going to walk up to your face, And
if you see a Nazi punk out there, kids, remember, it's okay to punch them directly in the face. It's okay. They like to
punch Nazis.
Yeah, they like to let people know with what they wear, and it's okay to punch people who do that.
Yep, fuck the Nazis.
You're legally protected. Trust me, I'm a lawyer. No, no.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if you're legally protected, but everyone else will have your back. Find a jury that'll convict you.
Yeah,
that isn't made up of Nazis, I guess. Well. All right, cool. Well, let's get out of here. What is your favorite depiction of punk in horror movies or movies in general? We didn't even get to Josie and the Pussycats. But yeah, let us know. We missed Grotesque, which had a van full of punks. We missed a lot because, like you said, the 80s, it was cool to put, Jason Takes Manhattan, knocking over the punks radio and turns around on him. The guy's like, "Oh, it's cool.
Yeah.
Knock my shit over anytime."
Yeah, plenty to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's so many moments where it's just like a punk in a scene, like Short Circuit 2, when Johnny gets beat up by a gang of punks and bleeds oil. Like, I mean, there's little moments where they're just like in there for a moment. And
part of that was, like we said, part of it was the fear that came with the misunderstanding. Because, you're looking at, the punks that beat up Johnny Five. It's like, a lot of times if they need someone threatening on the street, hey, let's get the guy with the green mohawk, not knowing that a guy with a green mohawk is not very threatening usually.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not a badass. I'm saying I would think a skinhead would be more threatening than a guy with a green mohawk. But
Yeah.
Nazi skinhead.
those are just that's true. Nazi skinhead, because there are also, that's true. There are
actual
non-Nazi
skinheads are just want to listen to reggaeton and jump
Yeah,
around.
So that's true. Nazi skinheads. Anyway, let's get out of here. Our theme song is by Restless Spirit, who are going to play our garage sale. But they're also playing LA on what is it? September 26th, I think. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for tickets to go live.
So go check them out. Our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go check him out. You can find us on any of the socials at Ion Horror or at iHorror.com, which is the site that brings us to you every 2 weeks. And stay punk, fuck shit up, punch Nazis, and I don't know what else.
Think about death.
Think about that.
Remember, this is not a costume.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
Yeah. So stay punk, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
And I'm Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror.